Hi everyone, I'm Tan.
I'm Lexi.
And together we form the Spiritual Business Collective. So welcome to our very first edition of the Sacred Rebellion podcast.
Yes.
In these podcasts, we aim to go deep. We want to cover so many different topics relating to consciousness, spirituality, business, and everything in between, because of course it's all interconnected and related.
Yeah, we'll just cover everything, because it's not just the spiritual stuff, it's not just business stuff, it's not just work or your family, it's everything.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. So we have our own unique way of doing things, individually and as a little collective ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we'll be sharing from our perspectives as well as individuals and our own journeys. We'll be answering any questions that you have along the way. And because we honour the other person so much and are still learning from the other person, we're actually going to be asking each other a number of questions that we want to know as well.
Yeah. I always want to pick Tanya's brain.
Insane.
Oh, yeah. So what we thought would be really just a really nice flow on for our podcast and for these sessions is I've pulled a few cards. So we've got Be in Service, which we are talking about what we're going to be doing and providing you with. The topic we're going to be focusing on today, though, is Clear Out the Old. Excuse that beeping.
It is very real here.
It is very real. So yeah, we're going to be talking about clearing out the old, and then just how that unlocks just all of these infinite blessings. Like it unlocks just so much in your life and aligns you in just to just that higher vibration, your higher self. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So I've got a few questions around this for Tanya.
Yeah.
In terms of clearing out the old.
Yeah.
Some of you probably don't know, but Tanya started as one of my clients. Mm-hmm. I work as a psychic and spiritual worker, and it's been so many years now.
It's been a number of years that I've been coming for guidance.
Yeah.
Sometimes not always taking it on.
Yeah. And what we found is, we both got guided to do the Spiritual Business Collective together. And one thing that I've always admired about you, Tanya, is just how easy you are able to. Everyone's trying to call. Everything's going on. You know how it is. But one thing I really admire about you is just your work ethic and just like how you apply yourself, and you're just so well organized. Like I thought I was organized, and then I met Tanya, and I'm like, I've got nothing on this woman's organizational skills, honestly. So my first question is, and what I'd like to kind of talk about today, I've got your permission, is just fears and doubts. Specifically in regards to whether that's starting up a business or whether it's going for a new job or things like that. You always get those fears or where you're like, oh God, am I making the right decision? What am I in for? Am I going to fail? All of those kinds of things. So I guess my question is, could you tell us a little bit about your first business before we kind of joined everything together?
Absolutely. So one thing that I'll share straight up is that I'm a sole parent to an amazing autistic child. He's 8, and he's just been a blessing into my life and opened my life up in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. And I really have to give him kudos for stretching and being the driver for me in a lot of ways. So, of course, when I started my business, my fears were around being enough and being responsible. Because I was the sole source of income. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit before I get to the actual launching the business, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, by all means.
So my son was diagnosed autistic at age 2. And just a little bit of background is that I was working, then went back to work full time to support him and me, and working for someone else. So at that stage, our life looked like chaos. So he was in before and after school care. I was earning good money and working for someone else full time, and just totally exhausted. I had no friends, I had no life, and we were just barely scraping by, surviving, because as you imagine what the demands were on him too, like such a massive day to be dropped off at 6 in the morning and be picked up at 6 at night, for a little person who was having challenges as it was. So that was a little bit of background story for what really made me sit down. Like I didn't do it for myself and go, well, Tanya, there's a better way here. I have thought about that before. But he was a driving force for me to go, there has to be a better way. And this process for me to get to launching a business, actually, it was like a stepped process. So the first step was knowing that I was worth actually changing my hours. So it was a simple little thing like that. My first step was asking for more money, which I got. And then
that's good.
So that was a good thing. But so then the second was like, I can't have my son in before and after school care every day. So it was just before school. I dropped him off real early one afternoon, Mondays. I had a massive day Monday, and then I picked him up from school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that in itself was massive. That took getting deep with beliefs about what work was, being brave enough to know that I was worth asking my boss, because I delivered such a good job, to change my hours to suit me. And so that was probably the first step. And then from there, it actually gave me the confidence to go, you know, what else is possible? So when you go and ask someone for more money because you're worth more, and then when you ask someone to change your hours to suit you because you're so valuable to the company that they want to keep you to do that, I think that gives you a bit of warmth. So that would be probably my first step. So people who are working for someone else and they're like, I'm afraid to, can't do anything, I can't move forward. Do something in your own job right now. Look at your self-worth right now.
Movement. And I think that's the thing, is that people get into that space and kind of just feel, I think they feel so trapped that they then, you know, their mindset, everything kind of starts to devolve really, and then they go, oh, I can't do that, I can't ask for that, and it feels really limiting.
So that was my first step, and that's what I recommend everyone, is that start with that first. And
sorry, had to pause for a second because I had to turn off that beeping. But yes, sorry, Tanya,
that's okay. So we're talking about steps that you can do right now where you currently are. And taking those brave steps right now, instead of going, this massive thing that I want to do feels so far away. What can you do right now? What can you do tomorrow? What do you believe you're worth right now? And what you're saying before about people, how like they feel stuck, and when you feel like that, you're actually not showing up to your job really well. You're probably, dropping the ball a little bit at work as well. So what I found, I became so good and dependable at my job that when I launched my business, I was booked out by people I had worked with within 2 weeks.
Sorry, can we just take a second? I just launched my business and was booked out in my first 2 weeks. Like,
but thank you. But what I'm saying is that work didn't happen when I launched. That work happened for the years before.
It was all the lead up.
The showing up of owning who I am. I've got my goosebumps on there. So I do need to take probably kudos to younger Tan, because that was when the work was done. The work was done beforehand. Like when I didn't want to go and be in those jobs, I still was, and I was still doing the best I could, and I was being the best team player or leader or whatever role. So I would develop those things then. So it made it a lot easier when I did launch. Now, a couple of things happened. As Lexi said, I was her client, so she had been telling me already probably about 12 months before, it's time for you to do your own business. But I had those fears, of course.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I even had them for my business. So,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
everyone does.
So I feel that's normal, and, if that's coming up, then don't judge that, because there were real things I had to get in place.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, the more I let it go and sat in fear and let that hold me back, the worse life got for me. So after being the golden child at work for my whole career, suddenly I was actually being bullied by my direct manager, and life just got unbearable.
Yeah.
So energetically, I was being told, it's time. Like, you're not supposed to be here anymore. And of course, my son's challenges started increasing again. So after like making all those changes and doing well, he was also telling me it's time to make some changes.
Yeah.
And so logistically, for me to get above my fear, I just had to give my ego something to play with. And so that was, I was putting money away. I had extra money in the bank for a couple of months to pay for bills.
Yeah.
And I started doing that earlier. And I did things like, I think I put my mortgage on hold for the first month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I do remember you telling me that.
Yeah. Like, I did practical things. So my ego had something to play with, to go, all right, we're doing something here. But really, they actually, I don't know if I want to say they weren't needed, because I actually needed that for my fear. But in the bigger scheme, I look back and they really were just things for my ego to play with.
They're kind of safety nets.
Yeah.
You know, like I kind of see them as distractions for your ego. And sometimes you need distractions. Sometimes you need to have your ego engaged somewhere else so that you can so that you can do something else over here. You know, like, you need to make sure your ego is kept busy throughout that process, I think.
So that's something that really worked for me, is that I had things set up in place so that I knew that I was covered for the first couple of months at least. And so I launched a social media company, and yay. And
she kicked butt.
And as I said, I got all my clients in the first couple of weeks. I've only lost 2 ever, and I just don't take any more on. So the people that I've had from the beginning, I think I've got 2 clients since that first 2 weeks. So I filled the books. I just kept delivering. But what was really important when I first launched, after doing the ego distractions, was I couldn't go back into fear. And what that looked like for me is, I live near the beach. I'm very grateful, because that's my healing place. Is that some days I went for a swim 3 times in a day. So if I was doing something and then I had that, shit, what have I done? Yeah. I didn't go there at all. I chucked my togs on, or I had it on knowing that was going to come up. And that's that. Some days I had to swim 3 times a day, because I just had to keep that momentum going. So once you launch, I find that you need to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and I think it's having the awareness of knowing when your ego is like, hey, like, hang on, I'm not going to entertain you. I'm going to, like, you exercise, like you went for a swim, but it's like it was still like burning off that excess energy, or those worries and concerns, but you just weren't entertaining it mentally or emotionally. And I think I really feel like just what you said then, like, that's massive. Like, I kind of wish that I had probably known that when I started. I'm like, where were you guys doing? But that would have been just so helpful, because you wouldn't have had those days where you really, and a lot of people do, a lot of our clients do, where they spiral, you end up spiraling because you're just like, oh God, and you feel like you're stuck in that ego energy.
Absolutely. The other thing that was really important to me was the people I surrounded myself with. So anyone that had doubts or whatever, at that point in my life, were just not in my life. I just didn't have room for people to, out of love for me, out of protection for me and Kiani, to come in and go, oh, are you okay? Or are you sure? Or do you need me to do this, like, as a backup? I just needed to not have that in my life.
And I understand that, because I personally feel like your family or your loved ones or your friends that do express, like, they express a concern out of love, but those concerns always mirror what you've actually got going on internally. And it makes it so much more difficult for you to push past that.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, well, maybe they do have a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's big, like, to just kind of give yourself that space to be able to move forward in the way that you want without entertaining other people's, you know, because realistically it's other people just projecting their fear.
Absolutely.
Because they wouldn't do that, or they're worried about you, and you know, they've got fears around that. And even though they're expressing it out of love, it actually can be quite detrimental at times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And the funny thing is that since I have launched my business, that first one, other people that had fears for me have been brave and come forward and done their own thing in some way.
That's
you know,
so awesome.
So sometimes it just takes being the example, and people who just can't relate to you. Like, could you imagine? I'm sole parent of a little boy that has such like additional needs, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just go off and launch my own business. Yeah.
They're going, what are you doing, you crazy woman?
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. And I guess, I mean, you've already kind of answered, because one of my other questions was how you deal with the fear, and I feel like you've really answered that quite well. I guess, you know, how did you then also deal, like, when things got busy?
Yeah. So that became my super organization. So I'm super organized. I schedule everything. And because my son has lots of appointments to get to, like on Wednesdays, you'll hardly ever get me on a phone call because I'm going from therapist to therapist and things like that. And the reason we can do that is because I've created this fluent life for us. So my answer is, when I get busy, I have to up the self-love.
Yeah.
And that has been a process throughout this journey too. So what I thought was self-love when I first started is not where I am now.
Yeah, I agree. It morphs and changes as you go.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's more just because your awareness of how you can love yourself on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
That it's that awareness that grows, and then you understand that you need to shift and change, and you know, like, what is self-love to you, and how you're going to practice it. I feel like that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. Exactly.
But,
So for me, that, like, at the beginning, there are times where you just got to dig in. There are times, like when I first launched, I was working really long hours, but I was also taking those times to go for swims and do my yoga, prioritizing healthy food. Like, I didn't dial back. Like in the past, I probably would have just gone on really cheap food and things and try and cut corners. But this time I really leaned into, what do I need? What does my body need? What does my soul need right now? And just prioritize that. And it was my first time of actually doing that fully. I think I've played with that before, but not really. And so what self-love looked like when I first started was doing what I had to do. But now it's actually asking myself, do I need to do what I'm doing?
Yeah, I like that. I think it's also, because it gets you to really connect with what you want.
Yes.
On all levels.
Absolutely.
Not just that, you know, I need to do this for myself. And it's like, well, do I want to?
And that's absolutely the difference. And some things that I was ticking the list for self-love, I actually was doing them for the sake of doing them, and not because I wanted to do them.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
I totally hear you, because when I first started, I would go, okay, you know, I've got to do this for myself, and I've got to do this and there would be days where I didn't feel like doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I don't want to write down, I don't want to paint.
Yeah.
I just want to watch TV or you know, watch a movie, because I don't really get to do that.
Yeah.
And so and whereas now I don't actually, like, for me personally, I just schedule in, like, that's a pamper day, or that's my pamper time. And it can be whatever I want it to be.
Yeah, not so prescriptive.
Yeah. I feel like it's more liberating.
Absolutely.
You're not kind of so like, oh, this is when I paint. This is when
it's true.
This is when I go to yoga. This is when I do. Yeah, it's
and I think that for some people that is a process. It was for me.
Oh yeah, you have to have those baby steps.
Yeah, I had to be very, very prescriptive at the beginning. But now it's because I've done that groundwork, I can be more fluid. I can follow my soul more. But at the beginning I really couldn't. I just had to tick the boxes.
Yeah. Oh, and I really feel like that's every single person at the start. You know, you got to kind of crawl and then walk and then run. Like,
yeah, what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Was there anything else that you wanted to that you'd like to add about the business stuff? I feel like you've actually covered quite a bit of ground in terms of my questions about it, realistically.
Yeah, I think for the mums, I'll share out there too, your kids are okay if you're okay. This was big for me. I went through a very much a martyr stage where I felt I had to go without, and I had to struggle to give my son, goosebumps again, to give my son everything that he needed. And what I found is that I'm still doing that, not from a martyr point of view, like I'm still giving my son what he needs, but the emphasis is more on him seeing me be happy. Because I didn't think that made a difference, but his emotional well-being improves when my emotional well-being improves.
Oh, definitely.
And I didn't get that at the beginning. I was, as I said, I was a martyr. I was like, whoever goes without the most wins type of scenario.
Yeah.
And now I see the difference. And when I say to my son stuff like, I'm going to have to go for a beach walk because I'm not feeling the best right now, and him get it. Yeah. And him going, sometimes there goes the voice, gotta love like when it hits you in the heart. And he even mirrors some stuff to me now. Like if he sees me and he talks to me and goes, are you feeling blue? We call it different colours. And he goes, do you want to go to the beach, to your happy place? So I feel like also being transparent about that we need to do things for ourselves. We're not robots. Sometimes we need to do those extra things, and that it's okay. That's actually building him up for success of, I'm not feeling the best today, or whatever that, what do I need to do for myself to put that back in? And I find that that's been amazing for our relationship, and also for him to understand that Mum's going to have not great days, but also to empower him. But the main thing is that you don't have to be a martyr for your kids. If anything, that pressure of them growing up knowing that their mum went without for them, I just think that is the most disservice you could do for a child now.
I totally. Oh no, and I totally. I mean, obviously, I don't have kids yet, but I feel like I really felt that, like when you were talking, is that because when I was young, when I was a kid, I'm so sensitive. And it's like I always knew when something was going on. Like I always knew when something was going on with Mum or my dad and you know, my parents would sometimes they would say, oh, you know, my mum quite owns her feelings. So she would say, yes, I'm peeved off at your dad because of this, this and this. And, you know, which like at least then you'd know. But I actually found myself, especially in my teens, getting quite resentful of that I'm like, well, like then shift out of it. Like,
what are you going to do?
Yeah. Like, why are you staying in this energy? I don't understand. So, but kids, I feel like a lot of people don't, you know, and I've worked with kids, dancing and everything like that. And I feel like a lot of adults don't give kids enough credit for how much they pick up on. Yeah. You know?
Absolutely.
And so like, I mean, like my mom didn't work when my mom didn't work. She raised us and everything. She did start working when we were in our teens, but like she went back to work. But I think the biggest thing for me was I'm like, you know, and even now I'm like, I want my parents to be happy, you know, and they want me to be happy, and everyone wants everyone to be happy realistically. And I feel like that's such a big thing that you can't be, but you need to also take those steps for yourself, because when you are happy, that overflows and it's going to be easier. It's going to be easier for you to do business. It's going to be easier for you to have positive relationships with people. Yeah. And that right there is like the key to it all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as parents, we just have to stop letting our kids be the reason we don't step into our truth. We don't go for our dreams. We just have to stop doing that, because that's a burden we're placing on our kids, which none of us want to do. They're everything. So I get the fear. I've been there, I've done that. But if anything, that is, use that as your driving force for making it happen in some way.
So just another question to lead on from that then. If so say there's a scenario, so say someone has kids, you know, and they're saying, oh, they don't have time to do it. That's one thing that I hear quite a bit from clients is I don't have time.
Sure.
And I mean, it's hard for me obviously to relate because I don't have kids myself. You know, so in terms of parentless parent, people are like, you've got like, you know, I think they think that I've got like mountains of time.
Sure.
But I guess my question is, you know, what would you say to people that are feeling like they don't have time?
Sure. I went through a stage of feeling like that, especially at the beginning, but that was when I was in overwhelm. I hadn't taken control of my life as yet. I hadn't prioritized that self-love, those practices. And to be honest, I had too much stuff in my life. So to move forward, I stripped it right back to what do we really need in our lives. So it wasn't
declutter.
It was definitely a declutter. And it wasn't I didn't go without. So the things that were important to me, I kept in. I kept in the things that made me feel good, but I started questioning everything I did. I took my son out of all of these things that I felt like he had to do to be a good mum. He couldn't give a rat's at all about any of these things. But here I was as mum, I'm signing you up for this, we're doing this, we're doing that. Saturdays, like I look back at some of my Facebook entries from a few years ago, and it started at 8 a.m, and by 4 p.m, we had done probably about 6 things. Like it was absolutely ridiculous. So I think sometimes as mums we really need to have a look at what we're actually doing, and do we have to actually be doing them, and value our time. So little things like, how much is your hour worth, like your hourly rate for yourself? Why are you spending an hour cleaning when you could maybe spend $30 if you can afford it to get a cleaner? So they were hard things I had to look about myself. As I said, I was in martyrdom for a long time, and I really had to look at, why am I doing all these things, you know, and ask for help. It's so hard. I don't know why it's so hard. We should be a village. We should be working together. Like, why do the pickup every day when there's 6 mums? You know, maybe that know each other. And
you know what I feel that's connected to, I'm digressing a little bit here, but I feel like that's connected to the masculine in a way as well, because men seem to just be like, oh, I'm independent, I do this on my own, you know. And I think as women, as we've been kind of, you know, we've chased after our liberation, we've really gone, I can do that myself too. Absolutely. You know, so even though we do still have this beautiful support and everyone's connecting, I do still feel like that's where it's coming from, is that it's like, well, no, I can be on my own and I can be okay. Because it's almost seen as a strength.
It is.
You know, it's perceived as a strength. So you're like, well, if I do this on my own, I'm stronger. And it's like, well, but you don't need to, and you're still going to be strong even if you ask for help. I very much saw my identity through being a sole parent and doing everything on my own, and that was made me strong and who I was. And I really had to look at that, and had to look at how that was being a detriment to not just myself but to my son, and having to open that up, unpack it about what it really is, which is all the stuff you're talking about, and allow things in, allow help in, allow space in. Because while I was running around trying to do everything, I was not being who I wanted to be. I don't like who I was back then. Like, I definitely wasn't leading from the heart. I probably was a bit of a bitch at times because I was so tired. So tired. You have to all some stage happens all
exactly. But the time thing is I think it's what we make it. And I don't know, if you would have told me that when I was in overwhelm, I wouldn't have been open to hearing it. But I would love for every mum, especially who feels like they don't have time, to try and step back and have a look at what you're actually putting your time into. Focus into, write it down, do a journal. Like, I wrote down all the stuff on one day, and I looked back later and went, what the hell? Stuff that I didn't have to be doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Stuff I didn't have to be doing, or why am I doing it when I could be getting this support to doing this this part here? And so I definitely that's a whole nother ball game as well with time. But that's the first. They are big things, especially mums. I think it comes back to the whole we have to do everything, be super mums and pack the best lunches. And
make the best cake.
The costumes are like. If COVID for one thing was really good for me with that stuff, because I was at the school every friggin' day doing everything, and as much as I've missed things I really wanted to, it's showing me that my son is okay without me in some instances where I'd built my identity around the fact that he needed me there for everything. And that was hard. That was hard.
Yeah, that would have been hard, just to kind of filter and process all of that, especially through your heart.
Absolutely. But it showed me that was extra time I could be doing on other things too.
When realistically, if you are then investing that other time into something else, then it's going to make it easier on your relationship as well.
Absolutely. And if I hadn't done the things that I had done, and they were hard at the time, my son wouldn't have been in the position he is now. You know, he's so much happier and he's doing so much better. And that's because I made those hard choices, and I looked at my ego and really unpacked what was going on for me, which was being a martyr and feeling like I had to do everything to be a good mum. And it's just such BS. Like, really, I'm so much better mum now. Don't get me wrong, I have my moments of control. But the time thing, definitely, it's worth assessing about what you have to be, what you're doing that you can maybe not do. And maybe reprioritize to create space to have a life that you actually really want to have. Instead of living a life that you're feeling like you're forced to have.
I think that's also tying into one of the other fears that I do hear a lot as well, is people they're saying that they aren't good enough. You know, like, I'm not good enough yet. You know, I'm not good enough. I don't have enough time. Those are so interconnected. Because the more time you know, the more you step back and the more time you invest into you, the more you do feel good enough to then take further action.
Absolutely. My confidence and competence grew together. So the more I did, I did it, the more I felt good about it, the more I felt confident about it, and the more loud and proud I got. And of course that attracted more. So
because you start shifting into your abundant vibration. You know, you shift into an abundance vibration and within yourself, and you know, oh, hang on, the world is my oyster. Like, I can do all of these things. You're the only I'm going to get a bit real here for a second, but you're the only person telling yourself that you can't do something. In saying that, if you do have someone that is telling you can't do something, I mean, you know, maybe an assessment to do.
Exactly.
But cool. Well, I'm really happy. Like, I feel like that's actually helped answer, because, you know, there was obviously, I was part of some of your journey, but there was so much more happening beneath the surface that I wasn't aware of. And that's why I wanted to ask you today, because I was like,
thank you.
That's all right. But this is our first episode, guys.
Yay.
Beeping, phones ringing,
keeping it real.
All of it. Phone wrist, it's all good. But all right. Well, love and light. Look after yourselves. Be your best self. And always take a step forward.
Bye, guys.
Bye.